Stu Whiffen, welcome to the Hodcast.
Hello, it's nice to be here, Sam. This is very, very strange. We've been chatting for a long time. I've been giving you some sort of usage of the studio and stuff for your show, and it feels really weird to now be sitting in the seat being interviewed by you.
I know you've been putting it off for a while, but I've got you.
Yeah.
Some people will know that you are a podcaster. Some people will know that you manage a club. Some people will know that you used to be in a band. Some people know you used to be a manager. Some people know you work in a modular business. But some people sort of chase fame and others build rooms where famous people want to be. You've built bands, nightclubs, club nights, podcasts, magazines, studios. You work in modular construction. You've been around some incredibly high-profile people. My first real question is, are you restless or are you building something consistent sort of underneath it all?
Restless. Yeah, definitely restless. I think it's really weird. Certainly when I was younger, I had so much energy and just really wanted to kind of build something. And academically, I was never going to reach any kind of heights, in academia because I'm just not made that way. I'm quite creative and I'm generally half decent at coming up with an idea and then acting on it and running with it. I think that's probably my core kind of capabilities is having that idea and then trying to develop it.
Well, we've chatted before that was it your dad that told you need to go get a trade?
Yeah.
And he made you be a mechanic.
Well, no, do you know what? He didn't make me be a mechanic. That's a bit harsh on him. So I should stress that my dad is probably my biggest inspiration. And he's thankfully he's still with us and it's really interesting to see him talking to me now and watching what I'm doing and enjoying, watching my life develop. But what I think, my dad's told me quite a few things. He always said, try and leave as many doors open as possible. Not at home. He was always moaning about the heating being on, but generally, don't put all your eggs in one basket, essentially. And I think with what I've done with my career today is I've always made sure there's a few doors open. So I'm spinning a plate over there and I'm spinning a plate there. And maybe that I'm doing it the wrong way. Maybe focus on one thing and throw everything at that, and then you may well scale to heights, that I've never reached, in anything else I've done. But he did say when I left school, get a trade. He said, because you can always fall back on it. So I went to a college in Thurrock and decided I was going to be a mechanic because my dad was a mechanic when he was young. I had no interest in cars, mate. I still have no interest in cars at all. But I really enjoyed the social element of college, and I was surrounded by a load of great lads that were really into cars. And this is the early 90s. And so, every lunchtime they'd all be out polishing and looking after and literally falling all over their Escorts and souped up Fiestas. And I had a tatty old Escort estate that I'd painted, got my mate to paint Dr. Seuss's cat and the hat on the bonnet and all these stuff down the side. So I was never a boy racer. And I don't, thankfully the lads in the class just seemed to get on all right with me. But it was really weird because we'd all be in our, overalls, standing outside the mechanics block, and I'd be looking at all the girls going down to the art block and the fashion block thinking, I wish I was better at art or I was good at fashion because they're the people I want to hang out with. They're the people that I think are my people. And so when I was at college, that was when I started kind of getting into promoting and set up my first event and formed my first band.
How old were you when you formed your first band? Because was it at college?
Well, we'd done our first gigs when I was at college, but I've got a recording of me before my voice had broke, and it's me and my oldest friend, who I probably can't say what his stage name is unless we can swear on this podcast.
I think, do you do another show with him at the moment?
I do, yeah.
Okay. You can say what his name is, because it's not actually, his name's not a swear word.
So let's just say it's called K and the Gang.
Yes. And you can look it up.
Yeah. And I'm sure many of you will probably have heard of him, because he's had 5 top 10 hits of recent years, taking swipes at certain members of the royal family and members of Downing Street, etc. But he has been my best friend since I was 5, and he's always been a creative powerhouse and my biggest influence creatively, and just somebody that I look up to constantly, and never ever fails to just surprise me and blow my mind with the stuff that he does. And yeah, we set our first band up called Serious Problem, and we was 12, and we've got like little demos of me and him singing, and it's great. But yeah, and then that band developed more when we got to college and we started doing shows and such, and then yeah, developed a decent following, and that band ended up doing all right. We've done some fun things, you know. Our manager was more famous than us. Like, we was lucky that Ricky Gervais thought we were funny and decided that he'd manage us. And I just wish Ricky was the Ricky Gervais level of fame now
than he was then.
Because no one knew he was then. And he was the Ents manager at the University of London Union. But he was great, and he got us some really fantastic gigs, and yeah, so it all kind of built out of going and getting a trade, which I've never used. I wouldn't know how to change a dust cap, Sam. Useless and stuff like that.
I'm just impressed that you had the cat of all the things in the world. You got your mate to put the cat and the hat on your car. What did that have actually any relevance, or was it just a fun thing at the time?
I really like Green Eggs and Ham, the Dr. Seuss book. I really like Dr. Seuss in general. I really like their sort of how they frame Harry frames words and such, and also I was a huge fan and continue to be a huge fan of the band REM. And there was a song out at the time called The Sidewinder Sleeps Tonight, and there was lots of references to Dr. Seuss and Cat in the Hat then. So, yeah, it sort of sparked something in my head to have that painted all over my car and get pulled over by the police every weekend.
I mean, if they could choose a car, it's going to be the car with the cat in the hat, right?
100%.
Might as well have had a Ferrari at that point.
I know.
What happened to your car?
The youth worker at that college bought it off me.
No way. So it could still be out there somewhere.
Oh, Dave.
Well, it must be, in the I imagine that was the 90s, was it?
Oh, yeah, I flogged that car in about 1992.
Yeah, so it could still be as a classic somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, you say classic, it's got Dr. Seuss painted all over it. Like,
then it's arguably better than that, isn't it? So I would tell people that you're sort of the most famous person that you've never heard of.
Okay.
And that's a compliment, not a slight on you all, because there aren't many people who can say, "Oh yeah, my band was managed by Ricky Gervais," and you know, I've managed some big TV names and you know, and run club nights with even bigger TV names and all sorts of stuff, massive bands that you were part of putting club nights on with and stuff. And there's a type of person who stands about 3 feet from the spotlight,
yeah,
but without them, nothing works. Do you sort of see yourself as that person?
Maybe not so much now, but I think maybe sort of, you know, in the sort of times leading up to where I am now, when I was doing lots of sort of branded club nights with, I guess you'd call them celebrities, you know, actors and musicians and such. I think I captured a couple. I ran a club night for 10 years with the actor Matthew Horn, who played Gavin in Gavin and Stacey. And I worked with Matt, and we set up our club brand as Gavin and Stacey started to explode. And then that become probably the biggest show for subsequent seasons and Christmas specials. And at the same time, I started looking after James Buckley, the actor who played Jay in the In-Betweeners and basically got him into DJing and managed the sort of the DJing side of his career with a friend of mine called Mark. And seeing both at the time the In-Betweeners and Gavin Stacey being these huge shows in the UK and spending a lot of time, certainly with James, spent like so much time with James, like, 3-4 nights a week, we'd be up and down the country at different venues DJing, and seeing like fame and seeing it and the effect that it can have, and just someone walking down the street and people just walking past them, sort of staring at them, and then the minute they've got past them, they're tapping their mates on the shoulder and turning around and talking about them, or sitting in a rest, in a motorway services having a coffee or some food, and people just coming up and wanting to have photos with these people and stuff like that, and it's quite relentless, and it's not for me, mate, and just sort of seeing how the press work sometimes with them, I don't really want to dive into that, but it's pretty grotty, and I'm just quite glad to be the one that no one knows that, helps them do what they need to do and takes a little cut of it.
And did you decide early on that was what you wanted to do, or was that a conscious choice to sort of be the guy that those people are around? Because you were in a successful band, toured, had record deal, that sort of stuff. Was that a conscious choice to then sort of take a couple of steps to the right of the spotlight and sort of put other people in?
No, there wasn't like a moment where I thought this isn't for me. Like when I was doing music, when I set up the second band, that was the band that sort of got the record deal, and we spent a few years in a Renault traffic driving up and down the country, like gigging relentlessly, and that was some of the greatest times of my life. And make no mistake, like I loved in the first band, loved being a front man in a band, loved all the attention that what little there was, but I grab it with both hands, and I loved being at front of stage. And then the second band, absolutely loved it. I was writing the songs and really expressed myself through that, and loved it, absolutely loved it, and wanted nothing more than to be in a band and spend the rest of my life just playing gigs and writing records and stuff like that. But it's a really tough industry, more so now than it ever was. And when I was doing music, all I ever set out to do was get in a van and tour with my mates, get on the radio and get on the telly. And we was lucky enough at the time. Bob Geldof was one of the DJs at XFM, now Radio X, and he gave us single of the week. So we got played on X, and then we got on a children's TV show and got to perform on there. And we put an album out, and I did get in that knackered old van and tour around for years, and it was fantastic. But as it sort of got to the point where you start to realise that you're playing with bigger and better bands, and then you start to notice that some bands, they're just their musicality and their capabilities as songwriters and that, we were just being surpassed, and I realised that I'd kind of took it as far as I could take it, and I wasn't as talented as you need to be to sustain a career in music. So sort of stepped away from it and got offered a job running a club. I'd been DJing at throughout all of this, and just sort of fell into that. And so it wasn't a conscious decision that I was being handed by paparazzi and sneaking out of, I don't know, Jordan's apartment at 3 a.m. to not be spotted by the paps. There was nothing like that. And the band petered out, and I didn't really feel that I had a future in that area of the arts, but I wanted to be involved in music in some way, shape or form.
So how did you sidestep then from being in the band? You then got a job at the club, And then how do you go from the club to managing sort of James, working with Matt, managing James, I mean, starting podcasts? And I mean, I guess that came a fair bit later, the podcasts and stuff.
Yeah, the podcasts were much later. So I should say, like, way before, you know, when all the band stuff was happening, I was already the resident DJ at a club, and I was doing my own little nights outside of this club in Essex, and the club's called the Pink Toothbrush, for any kind of context to this, where we're going with this.
The best club in Essex.
It's the best club.
I mean, it's the only club pretty much
we
now.
got that on default now because all the others have shut.
But it has. I mean, I grew up in Benfleet, and that was the place where. Just a bit of an aside, like, it's the place where people can go who didn't sort of fit in anywhere else almost.
100%.
It's like, and that's probably why it's still a club.
Absolutely.
Because it's like the most welcoming, you know, I could be in there and my dad could be in there at the same time having the best night, along with someone else who has got a bright purple Mohican, or, you know, someone who's got their bottom lip wide open with a piercing, or whatever it is, like, and everyone is just welcome.
100%. And, you know, aside from my kids, like, the development of that club and what it's done, and, you know, and to have a part of that's the proudest part of what I've achieved so far in my work. 100%. Like, that place it's a second home. When we're finished here, I'm going to go home and have an old man nap, and then I'll be there until 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. And but yeah, so that was always going on whilst I was doing the bands. And it basically sort of paid me enough money at the weekends, if I weren't gigging, to go back and DJ and squirrel away a little bit of money to keep me in cheap white wine and pot noodles on the tour bus. And then, yeah, when the band pitted out, the owner of the club asked me if I wanted to get involved in the management side of things, and it was a great opportunity, and I grabbed it with both hands. And then the thing with James and with Matt, how I got in to sort of work with them was I booked them to come to the Brush, to the Pink Toothbrush, to come and DJ, and got on really well with them, and sort of said, like, you know, would you be interested in doing more of this? And then the conversation started, and then I ended up, you know, saying, you know, to Matt, let's go and find a venue and do this. And yeah, we found one in Shoreditch, and we done it for, just over 10 years. And we had some, because it really helps, because these people have got really good little black books where they call their mates in. And so, you know, we'd have, like, opening night, we'd have, like, the Maccabees playing live, or we'd have Florence come down and DJ, or Zane Lowe come down with MTV to do a special on us. And it was like, this stuff don't happen to normal promoters, but because you've got this co-promoter who is, you know, that bloke off the telly, who I should say had incredible taste in music and was a really accomplished DJ, it gave you opportunities to get really good guests, which meant your club become, you know, really recognisable, your club night, and everybody wanted to come to it because there was lots of the cool indie kids were DJing. So it was such good times.
I love that, because you essentially built that off of being a nice bloke, like, and getting on with people. I can't imagine you not getting on with anybody. I mean, there probably are, and, you know, but I can't. You're just you seem like such a laid back, easy going fella, which lends itself to getting on with people, but also, like, you've managed people for however long. Like, there must be some amount of, you know, bite and teeth that you've got. Is anyone, you know, how do we sort of see that?
Thank you, by the way, for saying that. It's really kind. And, like, but another thing that my dad said was, you know, my dad was a docker after he was a mechanic, and then basically come out there and built a business up, and the recession in the late 80s, like, crippled my dad's business, and he had to start again. and he built it up and you know, and was really successful. And I remember him saying to me once that, you know, because, you know, we were very working class. We grew up, you know, I was born in Tilbury, you know, a docking town, and I've always lived in and around that area. And, you know, it's a pretty tough environment to grow up in. And I you know, I was blessed to have a really loving and supporting childhood, you know, and at times lived in nice houses, and then we lost it all. And it, you know, but there was always a roof over my head. I was always looked after and loved, and so I could ask for nothing more. My dad said something really important. He's like, to be that person that can go into a business meeting with the head of Spotify and hold your own and be able to communicate with them, and then walk out of there and walk into your local boozer in Tilbury and, you know, and chat to the man on the street that you're going to see in there. You know, just be yourself, be nice, you know, treat people how you want to be treated, and you'll be all right. And so I think that's a life lesson that, you know, the old man said, just don't be a prick. Like, just be nice. And if you're nice, generally people are all right back. And it takes a hell of a lot for somebody to ruffle my feathers. It really does. And, you know, as somebody that, you know, is a nightclub manager, you know, there's been a fair few people that have got the ump in licensed venues when they've had a few drinks, you know, but I never kind of rise to it. I'm just not that guy. I'm just like to be as measured as possible, and yeah, just be all right. You know, I'm certainly no angel, but, you know, just try and be the best version of yourself, and that's all you can do, isn't it?
Yeah. What does ruffle your feathers? Because it doesn't seem like it's people trying to offer you out or anything like that. So what does really get under your skin?
Bothers me when I see like them young lads that walk around with their hands down the front of their tracksuit bottoms. That really bothers me, that. Because sometimes they do it, and then they come up to me at the club and they want to shake my hand, and I just think, where's that been? No, thank you. No, but generally, generally no, I don't. I don't know. I'm no different than else. I don't like bullying. I don't like seeing people being bullied or taken advantage of. I'll be the first person to just go, what are you doing? I'm not backwards in coming forwards if I feel that someone's being taken advantage of. But yeah, just probably the same gripes as most people. I don't get road rage. That don't bother me. No, I'm never in a rush. Yeah.
I love that. I am a road rager.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not like to the point where I'm going to like brake check someone or whatever. I'm just like, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, that's how you want to drive your car, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, well, I guess maybe that's not rage. That's
yeah.
But it does piss me off.
Yeah.
But I guess also people that are in no rush to get anywhere maybe also piss me off.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm probably definitely that guy. I'm never in the outside lane, and it drives my other half up the wall.
Oh, but that's all right as long as you're not in the outside lane and not in a rush to get anywhere. I don't mind. You know,
a lot of other people are in a bit more of a rush to get places in the car with me, and they're just like looking at the speedometer, just thinking, seriously, mate. But like, got my tunes on, got a podcast on. Don't really want to drive anywhere fast.
I was going to go into something else, but now you said I've got a podcast on. If I had to make you pick a podcast to listen to in your car, what would be the first one you'd put on?
It'd be the Hodcast.
Such a tosser. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, recorded in Yard Studios, the best place, the only place, the most wonderful place to record a podcast.
If I had to listen to Desert Island Discs.
Okay.
I just like hearing people that I like. I like to know about their lives. I like to know what they listen to.
Love that. Well, you love that so much that you do your own now, don't you? Not Desert Island Discs, but
I mean, it was a massive influence on my
yeah, for sure. But I actually love the take that you've had on it, because yours is off the beaten track, isn't it? Off the beat and track, not off the beaten.
Yeah,
I see what you did there. I like it. But how did that start? How did you just give us a brief overview of what that is for people who are listening that maybe haven't got a clue? Because a lot of the people watching this are into construction and stuff, but actually, I don't think there isn't anyone famous that you haven't spoke to on your podcast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the podcasting thing, what I like about it is the fact that anyone can do it. And you haven't got to be a seasoned broadcaster. Do you know what I mean? I'm a 52-year-old grey geezer from Essex that's got a lisp, and it's like, and I fell into it through, my mate who's got a stammer, and he at the time was probably the biggest podcaster in the UK. And I stumbled into podcasting because I had a club night with a music artist and an actor called Scribbius Pip. And I'm not just dropping names here. I'm just trying to give this story some context.
Yeah, for anyone who is watching, listening, like I'm deliberately being provocative, because I can say you're the most famous person that no one has ever heard of, but people don't understand the caliber of person who you actually know. Your little, talking about other people's little black book, your little black book is now turned into like, some 18th century flipping massive Bible of people's names who have been, I just want to give context to that, because I know that you're not dropping names, but it is one of those things where if you just know people, they're just your friends.
Yeah, well, he's an Essex boy. He lives around the corner, and he grew up in my club, like coming to my club and watching my band. And then it was, he had a lot of success in his music, and then he became one of the first people to really blow up in the UK doing sort of long form interview podcasts. And with his Distraction Pieces podcast, which is still, going strong and is fantastic. And he decided to do a thing called a drunk cast, where he would give his two mates, which was me and Christopher Glasson, an opportunity to sort of come on in my shed, and we'd get drunk and we'd just have a conversation, because Pip's usual shows are very, very highbrow and smart and engaging. And I think he wanted to sort of demonstrate that, look, I'm also a laugh. Like, I'm a nice guy that just likes having a beer with his mates and talking nonsense like everyone else. And so these drunk casts, I had no idea. We were just sitting there, we were just chatting away. And then he told me how many people were listening to them. I was like, oh my God, this is quite mad. And then they become a little thing. And it was like once a year, the second one we done, we went up to this studio in London, and it was me and Chris and Pip, but we had Ramesh Ranganathan on there, and an actor called Brett Goldstein, who's in Ted Lasso, and all of a sudden then we had James Acaster and Ed Gamble, and it was these drunk casts becoming something. So basically from that we decided that Chris and I, we were going to set up our own podcast called Hardcore Listing, where we would get people in, guests in, to come and talk about top 5, whether it's top 5 sandwiches, top 5 podcasts, top 5 anything, and that's developed and is still going. And but what I enjoy about that was when I get a musician on, or somebody that wanted to talk about music, and sometimes, not that my co-host Chris wasn't a big music lover, he was, but I'm a geek for it. I'm such a music nerd. And I just want to dig deep about music with people. And so I thought, I'm going to set up a little one on the side. And I had a very little black book. And so I got James on, I got Pip on and such, and some other people that have come and DJ'd the clubs and that over the years. And then it developed, and I'm nearly at 700 episodes now, and
I made it my mission to try and go back and listen to them all.
Good luck.
And then I realised I don't have that much time.
No, it's ridiculous. But lockdown helped.
Yeah,
had a lot of time on my hands in lockdown. Everybody discovered Zoom, and then all of a sudden, I think the podcast environment just exploded, because you didn't have to find that studio and find an hour with somebody. You could just jump on Zoom and you could speak to people all over the planet, and that's essentially what happened with that show.
I love it. I love, mate. I love this conversation because and I think this is why people like being around you. You're just such an authentic bloke. Like you are Stu from down the pub. Do you know what I mean? And that's what draws people to you and makes them want to be around you. You know, I only see you for like maybe half hour a week. But I feel like I've known you forever.
That's really nice of you to say, Sam. Thank you very much. Like, but yeah, you know, it's just trying to be all right, isn't it?
Well, I guess you've been around sort of chaos, fame, late nights, high performance, pressure. Like, you are a grounded bloke. Like, what does actually keep you with your feet on the ground?
Kids. Mine.
I was going to say, not that's a different podcast.
Yeah, no, like my children, you know, and my parents, my wife, like anyone like that will be, you know, start getting ideas about my station. They'll be the first ones to be like, don't be a knob. Like, they're, you know, and my friends, like, you know, I've got a nice circle of very dear friends that I've known forever. And yeah, and I think I've always been like really into like combat sports and stuff, and I think doing that definitely grounds you in a way because
literally,
oh no, that's happened enough, but no, it does. I think you just everything for me, it strips everything away, and you know, you just. It's quite primal at times, and I think that just you have a little reality check sometimes, like when you're training and stuff, and I love it, absolutely love it, and that keeps me quite grounded as well.
When you do strip everything away, you know, the podcasting, the club, everything like that, like who are you? Because I don't know if, you know, I don't know. I'd love to know.
Probably quite confused. I'm 53, so I'm at quite a pivotal part of my life. I look back and I assess a lot of what I've done and where that maybe has led me. I think, yeah, a bit lost, a bit confused, a bit tired. Yeah, I don't know. There's things that you start to it's getting quite deep now, isn't it? You start to unpick as you look back, and I think looking at, and you start to question what drives you, and the things that you look at that you think, right, that's what I want to do. And then sometimes you achieve these things, sometimes you can crack it and you can make a few bob, and you realise that basically, all right, so like I've got my house and I've got, you know, I haven't got a nice car because I'm not into cars, we know that. But you know, you're doing all right, but you realise that money don't make you happy. And yeah, and I think, like, you know, I've pursued lots of things to try and find like joy and happiness. And I think I wouldn't say I'm an unhappy person, but I do think that there's certainly something I've yet to find that's going to bring me like some happiness. But I think that's most people, you know. I know that there's people that find that in religion, and that doesn't necessarily work for me. But I think if people find comfort in anything, it's fantastic. You know, you're winning. But yeah, I don't know. I've spent a lot of the time the last few years just sort of assessing where I'm at. And I think it's normal for a guy of my age to, you know, have a little look at where he is in the world. And you start at 53, you start to realise, holy shit, like 20 years ago, feels like 5 years ago. And if the next 20 go that fast, I'm 73. And it's like, there's so much I want to see in the world. And all I seem to be doing is working 24 hours a day. And what are you doing it for? Like, what are you doing it for? And so, yeah, it's a real weird one. I think, like, you know, I've spent my whole life just working days and nights, and I've been working all day today, and I'll be working, you know, Fridays I do essentially 23 hours of work, and which is no drama when you're 20, but at 53, you know, it takes its toll. And, you know, you start looking back at things that you've done and you start having regrets over maybe could have spent more time with my kids in the formative years. And, oh, you know, don't get me wrong, I see them every day, and we've always, you know, they've been brought up in what I guess is seen as a standard normal family unit of the, you know, 2 parents, dog and a house. And, but now they've kind of, you know, they're adults now, and you know, they don't necessarily need me as much as they did. You know, you start to sort of look at your purpose, and you look at what, you know, where your time is better spent. Could you do something like that would have more value to people, that would give you maybe not necessarily an income, but will give you a sense of joy and purpose and happiness. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm at the moment, like, you know, this is not poor me. I've got you know, I'm doing okay, and everything's, you know, I'm surrounded by love and stuff, but yeah, definitely at a point where, like, I'm in limbo, and yeah, I think that, you know, through looking at lots of stuff on YouTube and you know, so it's quite commonplace for men of my age to start, you know, assessing life and looking at the what ifs and such, and yeah, just having a little bit of a look inside, you know, from the age of like maybe 16 to pretty much like maybe 26, 27, like, had a massive eating disorder, and that never really goes away. And that was something that, you know, in the 90s, like, fellas didn't have eating disorders. Like, it just didn't happen. And you know, starting sort of meeting other people that have experiencing that, I've experienced that, and the reasons behind that has been quite interesting of late. Like, that's definitely started to kind of give me a little bit more insight into maybe my, you know, some of the things that were driving me, and maybe for the wrong reasons, you know, when I was younger. So yeah, it's been a real interesting bit of reflection for the last few years, just kind of working out who I was and where I am and who I am.
Mm. What brings you value at the moment then? Because you've talked about things that, you know, you've sort of tried to unpick, and the confusion and the limbo, and, you know, me and Gary won't mind me saying it, my MD, I've literally known him my whole life. He, you know, my mum had me really young, and when she was at school, and he was in the same year group. Weirdly, it's all come round back full circle, and I'm now working for him. And we were out yesterday. I was his driver. Who has a driver? Apparently him. But I was driving him about for the day, and we were going to different sites, and we were talking about, like, the idea of being in a desert. So, like, when you're in a desert, you don't really know which way's which, and it is very confusing, and you've got the sun beating down on you, and you don't really know which way to go. And sometimes you look and you see something and you think, that's the thing I want, and then you're like, oh, that thing doesn't actually exist. But you sort of have to carry on. And that, you know, maybe that's men of a certain age. Like, I'm turning 40 this year, and I'm really looking at the decisions that I want to make. What brings me joy? Where do I want to put value? You know, what is valuable to me? Is it money? Is it time? Is it, you know, friends? Is it family? Is it what is it? And that's sort of where I'm at. Like, what What brings you the most value in your life?
Just to touch on something you said there, like, time is one of the most important things. That's something that, I mentioned a while back about, 20 years ago to 20 years time, being quite scary. But yeah, time is a big value. It's a big one for me. I'm making that count now. But what gives me value and joy? It's really simple. It's really simple. And I really, really like walking down the river where I live with music on my headphones and then having a beer when I get back. It's pathetic. It's so nothing. It's just having a walk on my own.
There was nothing pathetic about that.
And I know that drinking on your own is frowned upon, but having a beer on my own, I'm very happy with that. That brings me huge amounts of joy, and I don't know. I like running. That gives me joy, and I love my Thai boxing. That when I spar is the only time that I'm in a moment ever, because you have to be in that moment or you're going to get a clump around the ear roll. So you have to be lost in that and completely engaged, so you don't think about anything else. So the worries get parked up. So that brings me joy. It really does. But yeah, these are all things that I guess it's easy to go. The children and family are given.
Yeah.
But thinking outside of that, just the simple pleasures and that wanderlust to travel more. That's the thing that's at the forefront of my head all the time at the moment. What could I do to live in my camper van? What could I do to make that sustainable? That's at the forefront of my head all the time.
Well, that we've chatted before, and that's been a big part of your life as well, isn't it? Traveling and going to places that most people don't go to. Like you'd go in your camper van with your wife and go out and just where was that place? You were telling me about that place where you went and it's now cordoned off. You can't go there anymore. And you were jumping off. It was like a waterfall type place.
Yeah. That's called it was called Blue Lagoon, a Blue Pool in Wales.
In Wales.
Yeah, that's pretty special. That is. Yeah, yeah. Finding I love me wild swimming and and I love I said walking along the river, but that's because I don't live near Wales or the lakes or Scotland. Yeah. They're the places I like to be. But traveling and it's not unusual that people like traveling in different cultures and stuff like that. I'm all about that. Love it. It excites me.
You're fascinating. I love it. Sometimes, I guess sometimes the most important questions are the ones that people don't ask. What should I have asked you that I haven't?
You haven't asked me to ask you any questions, and I like conversations to be two-way. I really like to feel that the person's engaging and he's giving something to them as well as it being a one-way thing, which probably makes me a bad podcaster, because whenever I've got guests on talking about music, I'm like, oh yeah, but have you heard that one? It's like, and it's like, and because I'm just infusing that, with it. So
I'm just, to be honest, with this conversation, I'm just sat in awe because I always try and find the best in somebody. That this podcast is not about me. It is about whoever sat in your chair. So, okay. And I like to, all right, I might give a bit of commentary here or there or whatever, but essentially not about me. Today, I've, it's actually not that rare, but a super rare treat that you have been there, you've done it. Do you know what I mean? You've got the podcast mic, you've got the appearances on stage. You've done a lot of the things that I aspired to do throughout my life. And I really love the fact that I get to ask you about how you got there and about how it felt to be there and how it feels to maybe not be there now. So, that, and that's why I've not sort of butt in because I love it. Like, I just love hearing about it.
It's weird though, Sam, because like when you know, we've been chatting for whatever it is, like half hour, 40 minutes, and I'm just going, oh, and then I've done this, and then I've done this, and I am aware that for somebody that might have a more traditional work setup, you know, they might go they might be a mechanic, or they might, work in construction or whatever. Like I understand that maybe it sounds really, you know, maybe a bit more glamorous than it really is, you know, going, oh, I was in a band and I was DJ and blah, 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 blah. And it makes for some fun anecdotes because people are, you know, we generally go, oh, what's that? What's he like? Is he like really all right when he's not on telly and stuff like that? But ultimately, we're all just going to work and like and just trying to provide for the kids and try and be the best dad you can be and best husband you can be and working in all of them kind of sectors in hospitality and music and things like that are not always conducive to happy marriages and parents that are, you know, that are there for their kids. So like anyone else, all I try and do is try and earn a pound note, you know, navigate my way through some shitty hours of work if I have to. But it's no different to anyone working night shifts and stuff like that, you know. It's just, I think because there's a few famous people off the telly involved in some of my jobs, to some people it might seem a little bit more glamorous than it actually is, because any famous person I've ever met or worked with, I've always just actually been double normal and I've got all the same anxieties and God knows what else as all of us. Do you know what I mean?
They just happen to live in airports and on buses, right?
Yeah. And that's not conducive to sanity. Like that will push you.
And that's where, you know, that's sort of why I've wanted to dig in a little bit more into you and your life, and because that is sort of what it's all about, isn't it? Really, you know, you when and if you have kids, you try your best not to screw them up, but you also try your best to provide. And you're like, the interesting thing about you is that, this is my perception anyway. You work. Or you have worked with, and you have known, and you know people who are shaping culture, and they're doing it first. So, like, arguably, Gavin and Stacey, Matt Horn, that sort of shaped culture around the late 90s to 2000s. Like, the In-Betweeners shaped culture. The Libertines, like, shaped culture. Scroobius Pip shaped culture. Do you know what I mean? Like, all of these people, Kay and the gang, shaping culture. And what you're doing now, and what you have done almost for your whole life, and this is a prediction of mine, is where people will be in the future. I don't think, and you say like people doing normal jobs and maybe they're a mechanic or whatever. I think that is a dying breed. I don't think people will have one job anymore in 10 years' time.
I don't think we can afford to.
Exactly. And this is what I'm trying to get the learning out of you from, because you haven't had one job for your whole life.
Yeah.
You know, you've had multiple jobs and how to juggle multiple things all at once. And that is where people are going to be in, I am sort of now, I'll pull back a little bit, but having multiple income streams, multiple jobs. But that's where almost everyone is going to be in 5-10 years' time, because there ain't going to be an income, I go to one job, do one thing, get one income.
So my question to you is then, Sam, like if that's the case, where people are going to have multiple jobs, do you think that will limit their capabilities of really excelling in one? Because I definitely think that me having loads of different things going on has impacted like potential success for maybe the we haven't mentioned the magazine, and I'm not doing that to shoehorn the magazine in. But like that was something that I thought was going to be maybe my retirement, and I've realised that it's not. And I worry in retrospect now, looking back at where that business is now, that had I have maybe not tried to be doing all the little podcasts and bits and bobs around it and just focused on that, I could have maybe scaled that to something really good. But then I also think maybe I've just not got that level of business acumen to scale it to another level. Maybe, that my ceiling is where I'm at. These are all things that go through my head now when I'm looking back and reflecting. Is there a ceiling to what you can achieve? Is there like, look, I could do these fun things that, pay the bills and stuff like that, but to then get it to the point where you're starting to think, oh, I could retire early with this. Like, I don't know if I've got them capabilities in my business head. I don't necessarily think I've got that, because to go right the way back to our first conversation, maybe security may be more important than creative freedom. Maybe I got it wrong. I
mean, life's one big set of A/B decisions, right?
Yeah, but that's what makes it fun, right?
Yeah, and that's it, really. I'm at a similar, not a similar place at all, because I'm 10 years behind, if you will. But because I've pulled away, I've talked about it loads not loads, but a bit on the podcast about being ill and quite ill, and pulling away from doing the 20-hour days and being out away from the home and being away from my kids. And now I'm sitting back going, I went to drama school with Blake.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I could have been where he is, and he is super successful. Regardless of, yes, the In-Betweeners was a great success, but he's been in loads of stuff since, and he continues to be in loads of stuff. Like he was off filming with Sky or whatever, or Amazon or whoever, whatever it is, whatever studio he's working with at the moment. Like, if I'd have doubled down, that could have been me, And then before that, I played like a really high standard of rugby. If I'd have doubled down, I could have been that. And after that, I joined a band and was a DJ. And if I'd have doubled down, I could have been that. And it a bit like what you're saying, like you get to a point where you're thinking, I thought that was going to be the thing.
Sport, acting and music, right? They're three of the toughest industries to create longevity and success in. And every actor I know, Blake included, they've got all the same anxieties and work worries and, oh my God, when's the next job going to come along? And, as every actor does, they're all doing castings and they're all trying to get, and because they're working actors, and it's just the same as anyone else, but their stuff happens to be in the public eye. So I think it brings, to the casual bystander, maybe it just looks a little bit more, magnified, because, it's in the public eye. I don't know. But I think I get what you're saying, but I do also think in a lot of these worlds, certainly in the creative industries, and the ones that I like to work with, your Scroobius Pips, your Matthew Horns, your James Buckleys, your Blake Harrisons, they're working class kids. And I think there's a lot of opportunity in the creative industries for privilege, because if you've come from money, you don't have to have a job. You can go to auditions every day. You can spend every day in a rehearsal room writing your first album, because you haven't got to worry about paying the bills, because your mum and dad have got a few quid. And look, that happens to be people's situations. Then it's not their fault. They've been gifted this opportunity. Grab it with both hands, 100%. But I'm always more interested in, what comes from being, working class and having that grit and having a bit more, I've got to work a bit harder for this, because you know, your mate Jim down the road probably didn't go to school with somebody called Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah.
And like, there weren't many Benedicts at my school, I know. And you look at, you know, the cream of the crop of the creative industries, and a lot of the time it is people that have come from opportunity. And so I think it just magnifies and intensifies the credit that people that come from the council estate round the corner can get there and and own it. And I think it's that gives me pleasure when I see people smashing it, when, you know, a lot of the time they've had to work twice as hard because opportunity isn't necessarily as available as it is. And I think, to go back to what you were saying about, had you have doubled down on, you know, rugby, music, acting, you had to go work, mate. You know, you had to go work. You know, you got responsibilities, and so it makes it that much harder. And so, you know, when people from less privileged backgrounds, you know, reap the rewards and get the success, it's that much sweeter, I think.
It's hard as well, isn't it? I lived in Shoebury when I grew up. If anyone knows where Shoebury is, it's not the most affluent area of the United Kingdom. Yeah. It's not the most affluent area anywhere.
Yeah, anybody that thinks we're two Essex boys and we've got our fake teeth and we hang out drinking Cristal in Sugar, that's a tiny little part of Essex, that world. The real Essex is not like that.
No. Well, and I mean, arguably, you could say that's not real Essex, is it?
100% not.
I now live in another area of Essex which is real Essex but doesn't want to be real Essex. So I live in Saffron Walden, and my kids go to school with kids like Benedict Cumberbatch and, you know, Fenella, whatever face.
Yeah.
And my kids come home from school and go, Dad, I want, you know, and actually they don't. They never really say I want, because I wouldn't let them have anything anyway. You know, Dad, can I have a party at the Pony Club because Fenella had her party at the
Yeah.
I'm really sorry, sweetheart.
Yeah.
But the answer is no, because Daddy's not the editor of the Telegraph.
Yeah.
Or, you know, or Daddy doesn't work in Big Pharma.
Yeah.
Or Daddy doesn't, you know, and they sort of get it. I find it really difficult when I do come up against that, like, and I find it really hard that I have to tell my kids. No one wants to tell their kids no, right?
Yeah, but
you don't want to, do you?
I think that now my kids are grown up, you know, and they see it through different eyes. They see that, you know, when my kids were young, it was all about like, can I have a phone? And at that time, like, kids didn't have phones. It was like, what do you need a phone for? You're with me all the time. Like, you know, if you need something, like, ask me, you know, and your friends, you see them at school, like, but it was like, but they've got one. So you're like, oh, you feel bad. But I think as your kids get older, you know, they understand, you know, they become adults and they look at like all of the struggles that you had and what I've had and, you know, and all the good things they've had. And they just, I think as long as you're there for them and you're the best version of dad you can be, then we got to worry about it. Like they see it when they grow up, and like anything that you say no to, you know, that kids need to have hear the words no as well. Like that's important.
Yeah, for me, I find it hard because I always wanted to be not the yes dad or the fun dad, really, because arguably I'm the disciplinarian in our house. My wife, you know, she's loving and caring and does all the, you know, does everything. If she's anything like literally, I couldn't live my life. She leaves Post-it notes around my house to make sure that I do things. So there's Post-it note, like where my medication is, or on the fridge, because she knows that I'm going to get a glass of milk or whatever in the morning.
Yeah.
Take your tablets, written in a Post-it note on the fridge. Like, oh yeah, I would have forgot otherwise. Yeah. Pick up the dog poo, like where the tablets are. So there's like a string of Post-it notes around my house, like taking me to the next thing to do. But I always, you know, I grew up in a home where, you know, my mum split up with a fella a first husband, and we were having to buy, or she was having to buy, when I was like 5 years old, 6 years old, a job lot of 6 months worth of Fray Bentos pies and like 15 kilos of potatoes, and that's what we ate. You know, so when my kids are like, Daddy, I actually don't, you know, they don't speak like that, but it feels like they are. Daddy, I don't want to eat my asparagus today. You are going to eat it and you are going to enjoy it, because I didn't have the luxury of eating the things that you get and doing the things. And then I feel bad about myself. And maybe you do, maybe you don't.
I'm just thinking, fuck, mate, pie and mash every day. That sounds amazing.
Now, absolutely, it would feel great. But when, you know, when all your mates are out having McDonald's or whatever, and you know, Mum, she was proud as well. So she wouldn't sign up for free school meals.
Yeah.
So I'd get £1.10 in the morning, and I'm the idiot who'd go and spend it in the sweet shop before school, tell everyone I was having home dinners and play football all lunchtime. Like, that's basically, you know, that's me. You know, how do I, and I guess we're getting into sort of parenting a little bit. How do you, as someone who's been a parent longer than I have, how do you weigh that up from being, I don't want my kids to be as, not impoverished, because I had a great childhood. I loved it when it was, you know, me, my mum, and my little brother. I've got 2 brothers, but the other one didn't come along till a little bit after me, my mum and my brother. And it was brilliant. You know, I couldn't have loved it anymore. But we didn't have loads. And now my kids pretty much can have what they want, apart from, a party at the Pony Club or whatever it is. Not the Pink Pony Club, Chapel Rome, but...
the world's a different place, though.
Yeah.
You know, I do think, you know, growing up in the, you know, the late 70s and the 80s, and, you know, I guess, you know, when you watch the documentaries, it's always seen as a time of affluence with, you know, Thatcher and, you know, everybody's loads of money and blah, blah, blah. But then that did bite everyone on the arse at the end of the 80s when it all fell through.
Massive recession.
But I don't know. I think parenting, you know, I've definitely got it wrong plenty of times. And there's times when I've got it right. And, you know, my wife and I trained as foster carers, and we fostered kids for probably nearly 5 years on and off. And that gives you perspective on kids that don't have the best of opportunity, and then, you know, as a foster carer, you're doing your utmost to give them as much opportunity, but that opportunity is not always welcomed because of the person that they've been shaped into by that point, and it's heartbreaking. But I've got a nice story that involves James from the In-Betweeners. And my niece. So, have I told you this? Have I told you this story?
Is it the prom story?
It is.
But I want everyone to hear it.
It's a beautiful story. And so it was at the time when the In-Betweeners was on, and it was the biggest show on the telly. And we'd been fostering some, you know, various children, and my sister-in-law and her husband had fostered our niece and Courtney, who, you know, had a tough time, and you know, like most of the kids in the care system have, and she was at school and she told her friends that all these lads were talking about the In-Betweeners. She was like, "Oh, my uncle knows him," and they just gave her a load of claptrap and thought she was lying. And she come round to us, and because we said we'd buy a prom dress for her, so we got a dress for her, and then she phoned her mates up to tell her mates about it, and it turned out that she was all excited that they were going to get a limo like these kids do to the proms now. It turned out there was no room for her, and I watched her sort of take it on the chin. I was like, God, that's rough. And So we was like, well, let's see what we can do. So we got my mate, like my brother-in-law got his mate's Porsche, and we borrowed that for the night. And I phoned up James and I said, right, look, I need a favour. Will you take my niece to her prom? And I could hear James's wife, Claire, in the background going, yes, he will. He's going to. Fair play to him. It was one of the nicest things, anyone's ever done. Jay from the In-Betweeners took my niece to her leavers prom, and as we pulled up, we got out of the car, and there was like a limo, like a fire engine limo, parked a few cars up by the red carpet thing. And as we got out, all these lads got out of there, and Court said to me, "Oh, they're the lads that said I didn't know you. Said that Uncle Shu didn't know you." And then they've all come running over, shouting quotes from the In-Betweeners and asking for photos with James. And he was like, "Sorry, boys, I'm taking Courtney into her prom," and just took her in. And it was as superficial as it gets, but 15, 16, life's a pretty superficial thing, trying to fit in at school and, and having the upbringing that she'd had, you should grab any win. And that was a big win. And it was wonderful. It was so nice. And after that, she was the girl that the In-Betweener took to her prom, and it made her go into college probably that much easier. That she'd had a little bit of kudos, and it was props to James for doing that, because it was wonderful, and something that I always think he didn't need to do that, and he stepped up there and he changed someone's life in one evening.
That's how you use fame, isn't it?
100%.
That's how all famous people should be. I mean, they don't get to do that all the time every day, but that's the little things that's how it should be done.
But I hope they do, because it weren't like an exercise for James, like when you see Prince William at a homeless centre, how did all the press know about this? It's this was just done to be a nice guy, and to help a mate out, and so I hope that many more people do stuff like that, and don't do it for the purposes of getting good press. Do it just for doing something nice.
Yeah, oh, that's amazing. That is amazing. I love it. James seems like the sort of geezer you want to hang out with. I watch his podcast. I watch his thing he does with his missus. Yeah. Oh my gosh, they are amazing. They must just be a great couple. Yeah, just to hang out with. And
I was there the night they met.
Well, you've told me a little bit about that before, but I don't know if we're supposed to go into that or.
No, they just met at the club we was doing in Scotland. We went up to Scotland, then he met Claire, and she come back with us, and there they are, married with kids and living happily ever after. It's wonderful.
Love that. Well, that is incredible. It's incredible that it's such a vast life you've lived. Such a vast life that you've lived. And I think that makes it even more applicable that you're asking the questions of yourself now that you are after having lived such a vast life. Because people could say you've lived like the life, if you will. But what is really nice is that you just like walking down the canal with music in your ears, and I don't want to get too deep into it but with you, I mean, I know your dog passed a little while ago, and that was obviously really sad for you, but also really happy because you love you got to live and love your dog, and that was what you love doing. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, dogs bring you joy.
Yeah,
dogs are great. But yeah, I don't want this to sound like I'm ungrateful for what you're saying, but I've not lived a vast life. I've just lived the life of, just to reiterate what I said earlier, really, just like it happened to involve a couple of people off the telly, so it looks a lot more interesting. You
took opportunity though. That's the point. Like when opportunity was presented, you took it, and they weren't necessarily famous when you met them either. They were probably a bit, but not. Hindsight's a great thing. Yeah. You didn't know Matt Horn was going to have. Gavin and Stacey was going to be on Christmas every year, and people were like begging for them to make more.
No, not at that point. But I can't take any credit for their because they were famous when I met them.
Yeah.
But absolutely.
Well, after everything we've talked about today, which has been all over the place.
Yeah, it's really difficult to try and sort of have a conversation if you want to sort of discuss the work elements of my life, because it does, where there's so many different things going on all at the same time, it's hard to kind of create like a timeline and it makes sense to people. So if anyone's listening, then, I apologise if it's pinballed everywhere in my career, because it generally has.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I knew that I wanted to get you on, and that this would be such a great conversation. A, because you're an amazing podcaster, and B, because you wouldn't say you've lived a vast life. You've just known loads of people, and they're just normal people. Yeah. Because I saw that everyone does. James Buckley's taking your niece to the prom. Your foster niece to the prom, which she is your niece for all intents and purposes, right? 100%. So he didn't have to do that, but he wouldn't have done it if you didn't know him. Be able to ring him up. So those two things are.
But surround yourself with nice people.
That's exactly it.
Don't put up with dickheads, because just if you're around people that are going to want the best for you as well and encourage you, then that's what you want, isn't it? You want a bit of a brotherhood, isn't it? Like, look, everybody look out for each other. You scratch mine, I'll scratch yours, and it's like it's pretty simple, really. Just don't be a dickhead and just be nice, and hopefully people will be the same.
Well, I think that's going to be the answer to the last question. What's the one thing that is a non-negotiable for you in leading a good life? And what's one sign that you're going off on the wrong way?
The sign that I'm going off on the wrong way is listening to LBC radio. It's mad, isn't it? I know. No,
Who particularly?
No, I love LBC.
Right.
I love it. But when I stop listening to music and I just want to listen to conversation, I know I'm trying to distract myself from something.
Okay.
And I'm trying not to think about whatever's going on in my head. And that's when I know that the Black Dog's not far away. And so when LBC is a preset in my car,
that's so weird.
I know that okay, right, I need to get down the river. I need to start doing some more exercise. I need to start eating a little cleaner and taking a bit of care of myself, because I know that when I'm listening to that, I know it sounds really stupid, but that's a trigger for me. I know that I don't want to listen to music because it evokes too many emotions. So I want to get lost in conversation, and I don't want to spoil the podcasts I like, so I don't listen to them. So I put LBC on.
That's fascinating. That is fascinating, because that resonates with me unbelievably. I'm actually speechless how much that resonates with me, because I do exactly the same thing. I literally was listening to LBC 3 days ago. Yeah. And I'm thinking, why am I listening to this? Yeah. You've just answered why I was listening to it. Because I need to do more exercise. I need to eat a bit cleaner, and I need to find some joy in my life. Yeah.
You don't need to hear really angry people phoning up about people coming over on small boats. It's not good for anyone. It's not your best start to your day. Someone just ringing up, just ranting about immigration or whatever else it is, generally immigration. That's not a healthy way to start the day. Just someone going ranting, and but I know that things are going a bit wonky when I'm listening to that. So that's definitely my trigger, that things aren't as they should be, for me to kind of keep a nice level playing field in my head.
Well, if someone wants to find you, or find out what you do, or find out, there are vast amounts of things there aren't that many these days. There are a fair few things that you do. You've got various podcasts that you do. The Pod Bible Mag, which we haven't sort of shoehorned that in, but I explain to people what that is and where they can find it, and what the purpose of it is, I guess, would be useful.
Pod Bible is a publication that I set up with Scroobius Pip, which we done in conjunction with Acast and Audible. And it's a podcast guide. So we used to print 65,000 copies that go out inside the Sunday Times. And due to increase in print costs becoming completely ridiculous. It's a digital format now. It's a website, and head over there, and it's your go-to guide for everything you need to know about podcasting. There's guides on there if you want to be a podcaster, and anyone can be a podcaster. It's so accessible. It's so easy. Record it on your phone and put it out there. It's like whatever you're passionate about. Like just because you see all these super famous people that have now got podcasts, like it doesn't mean that they're good. It means that they're famous, and so people want to create a podcast for them. It's just a gig to a lot of them. It's not something that they're inherently passionate about. Whereas that person that wants to do a podcast about the Archers because they like listening to that on Radio 4 or whatever radio station it's on, they're really going to give a shit about it. And it doesn't matter if it's recorded at Abbey Road or if it's recorded on their phone in their bedroom. Passion will come across. And when you listen to a lot of these high-profile celebrities that have got podcasts, they're shit because they've not come from a place of passion. They're not passionate about it at all. They're getting paid X amount of money by whatever brand to do this. And so if you've got harbour any interest in becoming a podcaster, just do it because it's DIY, it's punk as you get, and just go for it because it's a really good way of doing something really fun, creative, meeting people and expressing whatever you've got inside that you want to get out of there. So definitely do that. And then once you've got that, give us a shout at Pod Bible Mag and we'll show you some love. But yeah, if you're interested in podcasts, then go to Pod Bible. If you want to have a laugh, then I can't recommend Acceptably in the 80s enough as a podcast. It's my favourite podcast I do by a mile. It's odd, but it's fun. And if you like your mixed martial arts, me and his name's Blake, but everyone calls him Neil from In-Betweeners. Me and Blake have a podcast where we discuss the UFC and such. And if you the Off the Beaten Track one, if you want to hear me talking to, can I drop some big names now?
Yeah, go on, go, mate. You've Kiefer Sutherland.
No.
You've had an interview with Kiefer Sutherland on one of your podcasts, haven't you?
No.
Not at all.
No. David Duchovny.
Oh, okay, fair. Why do you think you've got one with Kiefer Sutherland?
Oh, I wish I did.
So do I.
I got offered Kiefer Sutherland for Off the Beaten Track ages ago to discuss his country music, but it never come off.
Oh,
yeah.
Maybe that was what it was.
If I was going to...
I love country music.
Like, if I would have had a son, which I thought I was going to have before my first daughter come along, it's going to be called Jack, 100%. Jack Bauer. Mate. Yeah. Like, the whole pregnancy, I would watch 4 episodes that I'd rent on VHS, and then I would have to run round to the video shop before it shut to go and get the next VHS to get back to the pregnant missus so we could watch more Jack Bauer.
You could have called her Kim.
Yeah,
that's not quite as good though, is it? It's not Jack.
No. But I went for Hallie because the day she was born was the Bond premiere, and Halle Berry was the Bond girl. And as I walked in, the front page of the Daily Mirror was beautiful Hallie, and I was like, "Oh,
that's a cute name."
Go on
then. Who's the most famous person you've had? Would you say? I mean, they might not be the most famous in entirety.
Probably the biggest household name would either be, I don't know, Tommy Lee from Motley Crue, or Foo Fighters, or The Killers, or Blur.
Foo Fighters.
But the best ones, if you want to go and check one out, is my favourite actor, which is Maxine Peake. Go and check out my chat with Maxine, because that was a dream come true. When I set the podcast up, my goal was to get Maxine on and Johnny Marr. I've not had Johnny Marr yet, but I'll get him at some point. But my chat with Maxine Peake, he's fantastic. So I'd recommend that one. And if you fancy jumping around to some rock and roll, come to the Pink Toothbrush.
Well, and if you want to record a podcast, you can do so in this very building.
You can.
Where do we go to find out about how to...
Yard Studios. Just Google Yard Studios Essex and come out and we'll make you feel at home and we'll help you do a nice podcast. or a video cast, whatever you want to call them.
Bless you. Thank you. So honestly, Stu, I'm blessed to have had you here. So thank you.
Sam, like you've been really, really kind. I said really generous things, and it's been lovely to hear it. And but yeah, and rare because I'm normally doing what you do, so it's been different and interesting. And yeah, you're a very kind interviewer. So thank you.
Thank you.